Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Yasilin Desari. I will explain the first material. The first material is job descriptions. Job description is used to organize or manage work in groups so that it is not arbitrary and the distribution of work is equal. Next, form of job description. This is example of job description. There are 9 parts of job description. Number 1, title of job. Title of job can provide an overview of salary and tasks that must be performed. Number 2, location. The location residence of workplace can be considered by a candidate. Number 3, principal objective of the job. This question will be easier to fill in if all other questions have been filled out. Number 4, main duties and skill improve. Number 5, resources manage. Explain the number of staff and their position, and the equipment and budget responsibility. And number 6, working environment. Will be very helpful to show about the work environment, such as general facilitation provided by the company. Number 7, training requirement. Number 8, career opportunities, and the last is any special term and condition of service. Next, collecting information. If a well-designed job description form is invaluable, the method of completion is equally important. While a job description form can be completed simply by the present post holder or by the line manager, perhaps the most effective way is to talk it through together. A line manager completing a job description form should do the following. Number 1, if post it already filled, ask present post holder to complete in pencil. Number 2, discuss fully, asking question to get full details. Number 3, agree the final version and have type. Number 4, retain 1 copy and send a copy to post holder to new incumbent. And the last, revise annually or on change of duties or incumbent. And next is defining the qualities required. The job description form stands as a guide to tasks and performance. It should also lead the manager to define the qualities of the person needed to fill the post. It is to this aspect that we shall now turn. There is no set format for a person specification form, but many companies follow the Alec Rogers 7-point plan, which cover the following points. And this is the 7-point plan from Alec Rogers. Okay, I think that's all for me.
Okay, I'm Ulfa Nurma Aziza. I will continue the next material about advertising a post. The goal is to produce a reasonable candidate file that is suitable for the job and motivated to accept it. Advertising a post. In this material, advertise that a post is considered more effective than any invention and unfair post of mood advertising posts. Next, selection on paper. Opinions are set. A about whether it is better to have standard application form or to request a brief curriculum vitae statement of suitable for position. Rigorous paper screening will usually ensure that the numbers interviewed are not excessive. Occasionally, exception can occur if, for example, you introduce an open advertising process and remove selection procedure into an organization. Next, selection interview. There are two main reasons for this feeling. One is that interviewing a candidate places the interviewer in a good position of power, and second, the other is that there are no objective standards for assessing the effectiveness of choice made. Considering the importance of interviews, both for candidates and for school must also help provide the required detachment recruiters. Okay, I think that's my explanation. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ayumi Suli. I will continue the material about the preparations, tutoring, and the stages of an interview. For the first, I will explain about the preparations. Preparations, a few days in advance of the interview, the panel should have been sent. First, the job descriptions, and the second, the person specifications, and the third, conditions of service, and fourth, applications, and fifth, if possible, references to this can be taken off later. So, the preparations, especially for the members of the panel, the documents received can be daunting and too detailed for use at the interview. Some organizations assist their process by issuing a form to enable interview, notes to be made in advance and used as a working document at interview. Preparation here means the completions of all activities that are not only approved by the candidate or interviewer, but all must be equally well prepared before conducting this panel interview. Accepted candidates have been sent reading posts that included the service at the time. They express interest, like the time and place of the interview to be held, whether panel member have provided forms to provide information provided to prospective participants during the interview as work document at the time of the interview. You can see for yourself on the article in the picture in figure 2.4 interview sheet, and various preparations for interviews such as providing a comfortable space, lounge chairs and tables in the right positions between the interviewer and the person being interviewed, and various other readiness in order to create a successful interview. Chairperson role is crucial. A chairperson not only has to guide and control the panel and plan an approach to the form of questioning and the making assessment, but must also welcome and set the candidates at ease. Here, the chairperson also approach the candidate to give an assessment to the candidate during the interview sections. And usually before starting the interview, the chairperson discusses with other panel members the essential criteria based on the quality of each candidate according to procedure through person or candidate specifications. There are different ways of organizing a panel interview. There are such as a free for all and area distributions. A free for all, such as each members of the panel ask questions on any subject. For example, about the flow of the interview process that will be carried out before interview begins, and then may be repetitive and confusing for a candidate. And ways for panel that knows each other word, and then the area distributions. Each panel member agrees to take a subject area. Having asked questions, the interview passes back to chairpersons. So I think the difference lies in the way the chairpersons take over before the interview process. Okay, the stages of an interview. An interview can be seen as progressing through several stages. In a good interview, the flow is such that the chains of emphasis are not overtly marked. The stages are first, introductions of interviewers and settling down remarks, and the second, explaining the form of the interview, and the third, questioning to obtain information, and fourth, inviting questions from the candidate, and fifth, conclusions. So the introductions here, the chairperson will introduce him or herself and members of the panel. It is worth deciding in advance whether to shake hands or not to avoid that embarrass fumbling that gets the interview off to a bad start. It is also helpful at this introductory stage to have some bland general remarks to settle the candidate down. And then the explanations. Explanations is the length of time the interview is expected to last should be clearly explained and the form of the interview should be outlined. Candidates need to know that they will have a chance to ask questions at a certain stage. And then inviting questions from the candidate. The candidate must be encouraged to ask questions, so it is important to leave time for this. It is also helpful to ask at this stage if the candidate feels that there is any relevant area that has not been covered. This prevents the candidate from complaining afterwards that there was no chance to tell the panel about experience which was directly relevant to the job. And the last, the conclusions. It is important to make sure that the candidates know when and how they will hear the result of the interview, and they should compose the bulk of these sections. And a successful as well as successful candidate will be informed. Okay, I think that's all for my presentations about the material, the staff selections.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Prativi Diana Cinta. I will continue the material from Ayume Suli or material 3. I want to explain the material number questioning technique quiz. In the PowerPoint have 3 points about the aim of the interview are number 1 is to enable an exchange of information to take place, and number 2 to assess the candidate quality in relation to the job, number 3 to enable candidate to feel they have been given a fair chance.
You can to open the article. Uh, in this article is on page open on page 48 and there's to explain about this objective are more likely to be achieved if the interviewers appreciate that the role is in the main to listen creatively and critically. The question asked so therefore elicit evidence from the candidate past experience as to whether they are suitable for the job. And then naturally, the direction of the questioning depends upon sensitive in listening and ability to follow up clues that are overt. And this have a many do lead to good question thing. Technique is number one is open question like who, what, why, how, and number two is clarifying questions such as I'm not clear about that, and number three is extending question like could you tell me a bit more about that, and number four linking question like you mentioned time doubling. Okay, the next material is about assessment. The overriding consideration throughout the interview is the search for the qualities required, but evidence collecting is easily forgotten. Particularly if a number of candidates are interviewed. And the next material is some supplementing interview. Some large organization like to supplement interview with a personality. Intelligence or aptitude tests under are a large number on the market to choose from. Um, if they are used, it is probably better not look at the result until after conclusion have been researched of the interview. And then even if commercially prepared tests of this type will not be considered by most schools, practical tests can be used, for instance, to test whether a flu bilingual secretary can type efficiently. The last material is about the induction of new employees. Having selected the successful candidate, written a letter to over the appointment and receive acceptance then before the arrival of the new employee, it is a good idea to think of what kind of training will be needed. Uh, However, the conquer at the stake is to give an introduction not so much to the job as to the school and the procedure used, which will enable to newcomer to be an effective members of staff as quickly possible. Some kind wherein the following sorts of topic can be covered. Number one, like a welcome letter from the principal. Number two, brief history of the institution. Number three, status of the institution if applicable. Number four, organizational structure. Number five, step name and position held. Number six, department areas of responsibility. Number seven, working condition. Number eight, detail on holidays, sick leave or maternity leave, etc. And number nine, researchational and welfare facility available. And number 10, step appraisal system. Number 11, details of any probationary period, and number 12, where to find detail of administrative procedure. Number 30, where to turn for further advice. Number 40, trade union representation, and the last number is equal opportunity police. So you have to check and then from the material about staff selection. I'm sorry if I have mistake. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Sorry for my mistake. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.